Are you thinking about starting TRT and want to know what happens when you start TRT? My name's Dr. Terranella, and in this video, I'm going to break down week by week up to around week 10 what happens in the body, how you're going to feel, some of the things to watch out for when you're starting TRT, and why it's important to get your labs checked and when you might want to do that. So remember, this video, like all my videos, are made to help you go beyond basic health, but it's not tailored specifically for your needs. So please read this disclaimer before we jump into the video. So what happens when you first start taking testosterone? So keep in mind that this is for the average person, and there's always going to be outliers on this kind of scenario. But for the average person, the first 1 to 2 weeks, you're not really going to notice much at all. Basically, you're not going to notice anything. By the way, this is referring to injectable testosterone replacement therapy like testosterone cypionate, but generally would apply to other forms of injectable testosterone and even topical testosterone. You would expect to kind of get this same pattern going on. The main distinction, though, is with injections, they're a little bit more reliable. You can really count on the injections are getting into your body, whereas the cream, you may not be able to rely on it. So typically in week 3 or 4 is when you're really going to start noticing an improvement or change in how you actually feel day to day. Now, if you're using more of a topical form, you may not notice this because it's simply not absorbing through your skin, and that would be why you're not noticing it. Of course, it could also be because the dose isn't high enough or your estrogen is too high as well. And the same types of things could limit the upside for injectable types of testosterone. And that's really where testing comes in, and testing can be helpful and useful in narrowing down whether or not you're on the right dose and if there's other complicating factors on optimizing your hormone levels. Now, mostly where this improvement is going to come in terms of how you feel is with energy and motivation. And that's, again, in week 3 to 4. This, I think, is pretty reliable thing, but it's not going to be maybe as drastic of improvement as maybe you're expecting. Sometimes people expect that, it's going to really change how they feel, turn them into a superhuman and things like this. And that's really with testosterone replacement therapy. You're not going to see that. Now, sometimes you do, but typically it's more described as an improvement in energy and motivation. People aren't as exhausted at the end of the day. Instead of going home and sitting down and resting at the end of the day and maybe falling asleep and taking a nap, they're working on projects, doing other things around the house that they typically would leave to do another day when they're not feeling as tired. In addition, at the 3 to 4 week mark, you may also start to notice some improvements in your libido, erectile function. Maybe you're getting a little bit more AM erections and things like this. In week 4, 5, and 6, basically you're going to notice an enhancement or further improvement in the things that you noticed in week 3 and 4. So if you haven't noticed anything yet in week 3 or 4, maybe that's where the things I just described are going to show up in week 5 and 6. If you already have noticed them, they're just going to get turned up a little bit more. So more motivation, more libido, more erectile function. By the end of 8 to 10 weeks, your body should be pretty well saturated, as much as it's going to be based on your current dosing strategy. So basically that means that, all of the nooks and crannies of your tissues have been saturated as much as they're going to be with the current level that you're on. Your body's in a new steady state, as long as you're consistent with the injections and doing it on a dosing schedule that makes sense, like once a week or more. If you're doing the injections intermittently, or if you're not sticking to a regular dosing schedule, you're probably going to get much more mixed results. So now on to some of the manifestations of side effects and when those might present. So I have had people note side effects and symptoms after taking one shot or even then second shot. In these cases, I don't tend to think that it is actually from the testosterone that's causing the issue, unless you're already somewhat high and you really didn't need the testosterone. More than likely there's some kind of reaction going on with the carrier oil in the injection itself. It could be like an allergic reaction, but I don't think it's from the actual testosterone because, as we've just discussed, one dose usually barely raises the levels and most people even feel it. With all that being said, it definitely does happen and the exact mechanism isn't clear, but usually this type of thing is the exception and not the rule. Most people, if they do have side effects, they're going to come on later in the course of of treatment, either as the dose goes up or your body gets closer to that saturation point. Now, the side effects I'm referring to here are mostly to do with the effect of overstimulation on the body, things like anxiety, increased heart rate, maybe increased blood pressure, trouble staying asleep, sometimes even irritability and anger. These are not the common or classic adverse reactions that occur from testosterone, from things like high estrogen, high red blood cell count, and things like that. Those I cover in a separate video. If you want to be on the lookout for some of those, you can check out that video. This I'm referring specifically to those increased stimulatory symptoms that some people get. And these can come on anywhere from 4 weeks after starting the testosterone or 4 months after starting the testosterone. And again, the reason for this isn't clear, but another theory as to why this type of adverse reaction occurs is because of the stimulating effect of androgens. It seems that low doses of androgens or testosterone seems to stabilize or even out the mood and nervous system, and high doses can be stimulating, sometimes too stimulating. However, what's low for one person may not be low for another person. So I think of it similar to a bell curve with dopamine and focus. If you're on the top of the bell curve, too much dopamine and you can't focus over here, and on the other side, too little dopamine and you can't focus either. You want to be kind of in that sweet spot. And the same thing seems to be true with testosterone and mood stabilization. I've had the most anxious people have a profoundly calming effect from testosterone, and seemingly calm people have a really stimulating effect from a relatively low dose of testosterone. And these are all people starting off with the classic low T labs and low T symptoms. So this is why it's important to customize your dose based on how you feel, and just as importantly, what your lab results are showing. So if you have specific questions on this topic, feel free to drop them in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer. If you want a more customized, useful, quicker answer, consider joining the membership. With the membership, I can give your question a little more attention and time and hopefully make it more useful for you. Either way, hopefully this video gives you a better understanding of what happens when you start TRT or testosterone replacement therapy. If it does, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue getting videos like this one. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.